Go. Hi, Jojo.
Hello, Sarah. I'm sitting out here at a beautiful pool having my favorite drink, Corona Light,
Happy Thanksgiving.
and happy Thanksgiving to you.
You want to wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving?
I sure do. 2020 has been a very, very tough year for everybody. We had to survive the virus. Uh, People had to stay home. We wanted to go out. Melissa had eye surgery. Poor David in college. He's been landlocked. Can't go out and work on his boat. Uh, Vicky had a little problem with cancer. JJ had a little bit of cancer problem and problem with his aorta valve. Uh, Renee lost a lot of her college experience because of it. Megan lost a lot of her college life. 2021 is definitely going to be better, Sarah. Much better.
Jojo, why is family important?
Well, I think you had to learn to be happy during the Depression because it wasn't a very happy time. Because a lot of people were hurting for jobs. A lot of people had survived. My father, I remember, he was going from job to job and take any kind of job he had. In fact, I remember one time he was working on a garbage truck to make a living. The family was very, very important at that time. Nana, I remember one of her friends asked her to take a Christmas job just to help clean offices. Well, she stayed there for 20 years. She liked it so much because she was with Polish women, Ukrainian women, and Russian women, and she could speak 3 languages, so obviously it made her feel at home to be able to do that. Uh, Pop, I think finally gave up the job, but he was working 2 jobs. I remember he was working on a garbage truck in the daytime, he was working on Eastern Malibu Iron Company at nighttime, so he was very, very busy. But everybody, we grew up on the south side and everybody else was in the same boat. Uh, we didn't have much. We thought we were just as good as everybody else. Uh, but it was tough. It was tough growing up. But we survived. Pop uh, went from that job to starting a mechanical job on 3rd Street Bridge. Then he wound up being a bridge tender. So finally he graduated from his two jobs at a time. Uh, I remember I think you asked me one of the funniest stories I believe that you were going to ask me, I believe, were you not? I can wait for that, but
No, go ahead, tell us.
I remember I was outside playing in the backyard, and I think I told my whole family this story. I remember playing out in the backyard, and I heard somebody yelling, calling my name, Joey, Joey, Joey.
Who was calling you?
I believe it was Nana. It sounded like Nana, but I couldn't see her. And I finally realized that she must be inside the outdoor outhouse. We didn't have an indoor facility at that time during the Depression. And there she was. The floor had caved in the outhouse, and my father had put up a clothespin bag on a hook, and she was hanging by the clothespin bag, dangling over top of the hinaw, and you know what hinaw is.
Yes, we do.
So I got her out, and she was crying. She was so upset and crying. Uh, Now, do we go into the princess bedroom yet?
Sure, go ahead, tell us about the princess's bedroom.
Well,
Who is the princess anyway?
the princess was your Mother Teresa. And she
Okay.
got that name Mother Teresa from the you know who. Well, anyway, I remember that Pop used to snore a lot. And Nana used to say, I can't sleep. And she would ask him to go sleep somewhere else. And he'd come in my bedroom and sleep. There was 2 beds in my bedroom. But the princess had her own bedroom, her own nice place. But it was fun. Pop, when I would share sailor stories before we would go to sleep, he used to tell me how it was so someday you'll remember that he had told me that the worst thing about being in the Navy was being out on duty when it was cold and rainy. And certainly years later, I knew what he was talking about because I was on that ship in a cold, rainy day. Pop during the Depression used to have a vegetable garden because there wasn't much money going around, so he would go out towards the dump and plant a garden. He'd have grow all kinds of vegetables, tomatoes and cucumbers and peppers, and that's how we got our vegetables in the summertime.
Remember when he would make tomato sandwiches for us?
Tomato sandwiches, onions, and mayonnaise. They were our lunch. No meat. I never had any meat. I remember we thought steak was a pretty big deal, but our steak was so tough you couldn't even chew it. It was so tough. Nana worked at night, and that gave me a lot of free time at night. I had a lot of freedom to play. I remember my mother used to cook. She had 3 brothers and a sister that lived close by. And I remember that my mother, for years and years, my father would take dinner to his brothers and sisters. And she cooked for 2 families all those years. She sure was a hard-working woman. Later on, her youngest sister, Aunt Annie, became a nun. And that didn't last long because she couldn't stand that environment. So we did appreciate what we had. Sometimes you wonder, God, it must be difficult to grow up during the Depression. But everybody was just alike, and we got used to being just like everybody else.
So it's not really about money, is it, JoJo?
Not about money. It's about being happy. And we were a very, very happy family.
Did Aunt Joanne live with you?
Aunt Joanne, I don't know whether her mother got sick, and I really do not recall exactly why she got sick. But she came and lived with us. I think at the time she must have been about 3 years old. And she stayed with us for several months, and then she left. I don't know why. I don't know the reason why she stayed with us. Maybe her mother was having another child or something.
JoJo?
Yes.
Why is it important to be grateful?
Well, I think one of the things to be grateful for is the fact that to be able to survive a very difficult time and have parents you know that loved you and took care of you. And at the time, it didn't seem like important, but as you look back on when you become your own parent, what sacrifices they made. And I think that some of the things that I'm thankful for, obviously, is my family today. I have a lovely family. I have a cousin and niece and grandchildren. I've been able to live long enough to enjoy my children and their children, and I appreciate it. Not many people have the opportunity to live long enough to see all their grandchildren. I've seen all my grandchildren grow up. Some of them are already married. I'm thankful for that opportunity.
JoJo?
Yes.
If you could give your family advice about finding happiness, what would you tell them?
First of all, I think you have to have faith, whether you believe in God or you believe in what you believe in. I think it's important to have faith in something to make you want to do good. When you grow up in a very difficult neighborhood that I grew up in, I was always grateful I had sports to keep me out of some of the bad things that some of the guys used to do growing up. A lot of the guys I wound up with got caught stealing and wound up in jail. I'm thankful for the fact that I'm happy for the fact that I'm able to say that I grew up in a neighborhood that wasn't conducive to being a goody two-shoes, and I think it was much more difficult. And I really owe it to my upbringing, and I also owe it to sports that kept me away from the guys that did wrong things.
So that's those are the two things that you're faithful for. The priests kept you in line, and playing sports kept you on your toes, right?
Plus a wonderful family. My parents loved me, and I knew that, and they were made many sacrifices, regardless of the income. Success will follow. I mean, it's kind of. I think you should share what you know. I'm not sure I'm answering your question.
You are. No, you are.
I think that sharing your knowledge and help other people, I think, brings satisfaction in your life. With your own children, don't vomit on them. It's very easy for parents to say, I think you should do this, maybe you should try that, why don't you do that? When actually I call that being overprotective, over concerned, when actually if you're a good parent and did your best to bring them up in a proper way with good values, they'll find the right way, they'll do the right thing, they'll find a place in life that'll bring them happiness. But I think you have to share that with others. In other words, if you've learned things in life, wait till they ask you. Wait till your children say, Dad, what would you do in this situation? Don't say, I would do this if I were you. Children don't want to hear that. When they want to learn something, they'll come to you and ask you.
That's right. Okay, you had a few more things to add?
Well, I think one of the things that you should learn for your own self is don't ever care who gets the credit. Family forever, regardless of what your endeavors are. I think the other thing you want to talk about were goals.
Go ahead.
I think to accomplish goals, everybody should have goals in life. When you talk to your children about goals when they're young, they don't really understand it. But I think you should have goals in life, prepare a step-by-step plan to achieve those goals. I remember I wanted to be a college professor. And in order for me to be a college professor, I had to learn to teach the elementary children, I had to learn to teach the junior high school, and I had to learn to teach the high school. And consequently, that made me a better college professor because I could speak from knowledge, not a book, to those future teachers. And it made them appreciate and understand what I was trying to get across. Regarding goals, I always had my goals written in my wallet. I had a goal of accomplishing this particular sales projection. I wrote it down in my wallet. Every time I opened my wallet up, I would see my goal. I had a goal of owning so much property. I opened up my wallet and I saw in the wallet, well, you need to live here, you need to live there. I believe if you're serious about your goals, you should write them down. And most importantly, besides writing them down, date them.
Oh, that's good advice.
In other words, I will accomplish this by such and such a date. And that gives you a plan by setting the date. I think you want to talk about laughs.
Sure.
Growing up as a youth, laughing. Laughing keeps you positive. Some of my funny things that I recall growing up was, and I'm not proud of this, but one of the funniest things that ever happened to me was a buddy of mine named Putz. We built a tin boat made out of corrugated metal and went and filled the boat up by taking iron out of a pyrites company, and we put the iron in the tin boat and crossed the Delaware River. We never made it because there was so much weight in the tin boat that the boat sunk. And we had to swim across the Delaware River because we couldn't go any further because the boat had sunk.
What were you going to do with the money from selling that?
Oh, that's a very interesting question. There was a junkyard near our neighborhood. We would get the junk we would steal the junk from the junkyard and go back to the junkyard the next day and sell back the junk we stole from the junkyard. And he never knew the difference because he had so much junk. One of the easiest, not the easiest, but one of the hardest things to do during the Depression was find a job where you can make money when you're 11 or 12 years of age. My daughter asked me, "What was your first job, Dad?" My first job was a huckster. And I remember getting up at 6:30 in the morning and meeting the guy who had a horse and wagon, and we were going to sell produce throughout the various neighborhoods in Wilmington, Delaware. And I worked from 7 o'clock in the morning till dark for 10 cents.
How long did you keep that job?
One day. One day.
So basically, you think people should value what they're worth, right?
Right.
What did Gwenny always say that you always share with me? Treat yourself.
Be good to yourself. You got to be good to yourself because nobody else is going to be kinder to you than yourself.
That's excellent advice, JoJo.
I remember another funny experience I had is two of my good friends. One was a guy named Joe McHenry. He lived close by in a different neighborhood called Eden Park. And he had a friend named Toots Farrell, who was a big black guy. And he later became a professional pitcher. And we were going to run away to Florida. Well, Joe McHenry didn't show up, and I was standing behind an oak tree waiting for Toots Farrell, the black guy who had tied up all his sheets and lowered them down to the ground. And lo and behold, behind the house was followers there waiting for him to arrive at the ground. And he grabbed him, and of course, Toots got a real shellacking. So I had to go run away myself because I had already promised my parents I was going to Florida. So I had written them a letter saying that I love my family and all, but I need some more adventure. And I remember hopping a boxcar in Newcastle, Delaware. It was around 7:30 in the morning because I got up early. And I was on that boxcar, sleeping all day on a bunch of boxes. I got off the boxcar. It was dark. It was summertime because it was getting dark a little later, so it was probably 7 or 8 o'clock at night. I get off the boxcar, and I thought, I have to be in Florida. And I looked at the sign. I start walking. I had my little stick and my kerchief with my fruit and my juice in it. I'm walking down the road, and this old farm guy came up in his truck and asked me, "Where are you going?" I'll never forget how clever he was. I said, "I'm going to Florida." And he said, "Well, where are you coming from?" "Well, I came from Wilmington, Delaware." "Am I in Florida?" He said, "No, you're in Salisbury, Maryland." I was on that train for over 7 hours. I must have gone back from Wilmington to Salisbury, back to Wilmington to Salisbury all day long. And here I was so disappointed because I was only in Salisbury, Maryland. Needless to say, what happened was the gentleman was smart enough to ask me where I was going, but where I came from. So he took me to the bus station and told me to get on the bus. And I don't know who paid the bus driver, but the bus driver took me down to the Pennsylvania Railroad Station on the east side of Wilmington. And here I was. I remember that I had to go home then because I was in Wilmington. I remember my mother had called the police, and she was crying, and what did I do wrong, and so on and so forth. And I just felt bad about it. I thought my father was very clever. He was working a shift work. So my buddy and I were on our way to serve Mass together the next day at St. Mary's Church on the east side of Wilmington. And my father was on the other side of the road coming home from working 11 to 7 shift. And here I was, proud as punch. Well, I guess I'm going to catch the devil for my father. My father looked at me, and my buddy at that time was J.J. Pollinger, looked at me and said, "What happened, Joe? did you get tired and hungry? And that just took the wind right out of my sails.
Go.
Well, I'm 93 years of age. I'm sitting here with my lovely, lovely Sarah Miller. And I guess they wanted to know what it was like growing up. And I tried to relay basically what it was like growing up, what I was happy about. Obviously, I said family. What I was proud about, I think I was proud about the fact that I grew up in very difficult times, and I maintained a certain amount of dignity to my life. I knew what right from wrong was, and I contributed that to my Christian backing. I knew I should do this, I knew I shouldn't do that. I'm grateful for the fact that I learned that at an early age. I'm thankful most of all for my health. I'm 93 and I'm still able to sit here and talk to Sarah. I'm thankful for the fact that I've been able to enjoy my family all these years. I'm very thankful that I've watched my grandchildren grow up. I've watched them get married. I've watched them mature into young adults. I'm thankful probably most of all for the fact I'm still able to enjoy family get-togethers like I'm having now with Sarah and her family.
We miss everybody, right? We wish we could have a giant table, right?
I wish we had everybody here together. Maybe someday before I croak it might happen. And I hope someday it will, because it's a shame, because each and every one of the family, be they live in Texas where Melissa lives, or they live in Georgia where Vicki lives, or in Florida where I live, that someday that we all get together and enjoy this time together, because they all are lovable in each of their ways.
So raise your glass, JoJo. Wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving 2020. I sure in hell hope that 2021 is better. Vicki had a rough year. I had a rough year. Melissa had a rough year with her eye.
Might.
Sarah is getting ready for another operation on her knee, and we're still able to laugh about it. So thank you for interviewing me, Sarah.
We love you, JoJo.
And we love you too.